I would talk to them about Jesus, but I don't even know if I believed anything I was saying. If I was God, I would have given up on this guy. Praise God, I'm not God. I heard in my spirit, you were the least out of everyone here because you have tasted my goodness and still turned away.
Oh my gosh. Justin, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. The reason that I'm excited about this episode today is, you know, you look throughout the Bible and you see that God writes crazy stories with people's lives. He puts the most dramatic, details and puts it all together. And you have a crazy story about how God spoke to you and put together, this story about missions and the nations and saying yes to God. And I think it's a lot of people listening to today are going to be provoked to find that God story for their life. So thank you for coming on. And why don't you just bring us in? Like, where did the story start for you?
Well, I'm from a little country in South Asia called Malaysia. Grew up there, was born there my whole life. I lived there my whole life. When I was 12, my mom brought me to a conference called Power and Love. It's run by these two evangelists called Todd White and Robbie Dawkins in
Yeah.
Singapore, so like right next to where I'm from. Grew up in the church, but never really had a relationship with God, so I was super reluctant to go. It's like, why would I waste my weekend on this trip? Um,
Okay, I love that.
but I go and I get prophesied over for the first time. They're like teaching about prophecy, and I think maybe like 10 different people come up to me with basically the exact same word. That they're saying stuff like, "You're an arrow in God's quiver, and He's about to shoot you with accuracy."
Whoa.
Another lady came up to me saying, "The Lord is going to set you on fire, and the fire is going to be contagious, and it's going to spread throughout the nations." And then
Wow.
just words like these, and as a 12-year-old, you don't really pay attention to them, but
Okay.
my mom wrote every single one down. And then one night, the last night, I get prayed for by Todd White, and I hear the Lord speak to me almost as close to audibly as you can. And He says, "Thank you for giving me your youth. I'm so glad you gave your life to me when you're 13 rather than when you're 40. Because imagine how many lives you can impact."
Whoa.
So that conference ends, and I'm like going back to my 12, 13-year-old life. This is December 2018. Don't really know what to do. But my mom, I never found this out till later. My mom started praying like, "Lord, how do I steward my son's gifting and how do I steward my son's calling?" I had a bunch of words that I was called to be an evangelist and all these different things at the conference. Didn't know what that meant. And my mom stumbled across this thing called the Send. This is 2 months before the Send Orlando.
Okay.
She sees it on Instagram, I think, and I think it's Instagram. And she was like, "Oh, it's like evangelism and young people for the missions. That's literally what Justin was prophesied over at the conference. I have to like see what's up." So I remember it was a Sunday morning. It must have been like 7 a.m. My mom like wakes me up and brings me into her room. And on her computer, I see this lady like screaming at the top of her lungs, like, "Take courage, the harvest is ripe." And I never read Matthew 9 at that point. I didn't know that Jesus had prayed that. I remember my mom leaves the room, and this lady, who I find out later is Lindy Kofa, she's like screaming, "Lift up your voice, for Jesus is alive." And I'm like, what is going on? But as soon as she said, "The harvest is ripe," I remember so vividly. It was like the room became electric. Like this little small room in the corner, something like awakened inside of it. It was like my spirit like opened its eyes. That's the best way I could explain it.
Wow.
And then she starts singing, "I am not ashamed. I am not ashamed of the gospel alive in me. I am not ashamed. I am not ashamed of the power that has set me free." I still remember the lyrics to this day. And I remember I had never wept in worship. I
Yeah.
wasn't singing. but I cried so much. Just tears just streaming down my face, and I didn't even know what I was crying about.
Questions naturally arise when you study your Bible. Logos is a place where you can get those questions answered. Imagine being able to ask C.S. Lewis to explain his thoughts about salvation. With Logos and their new study assistant, you can use the power of AI to mine the depths of the Bible and the most trusted theologians all in one place. If you sign up right now, you get a free 60-day trial, and you can see how it impacts your Bible study. Go to logos.com/thesend and sign up now. I logged in and I asked Logos to help me understand how the disciples responded after Jesus gave them the Great Commission. And it gave me this really interesting summary with Bible verses and hyperlinks to books in the Logos library that I could dive into for more. If you're passionate about studying the Bible, and if you want to learn from history's greatest theologians and get your personal questions answered, then this is definitely for you. The Bible, it's an ancient book, and you want to know that you're reading it well. So get the historical context, search passages and themes, and satisfy that longing that you have to know the Bible more. 6 million people are using Logos, and it's time for you to try it too. Go to logos.com/thesend, and you'll get that 60-day trial for free. And you're in your living room,
I'm in my mom's room watching the Send Orlando online
on like a TV, on a laptop.
on like this busted like Dell like monitor screen. It was not fancy at all.
Yeah.
Didn't know what the Send was, didn't know what it stood for, I literally knew nothing. But I remember through my tears, I hear this man speak on stage, like, could everyone please take off their shoes and like lift it above their heads as a sign that the war in inaction starts today, and that this is our yes to go to the nations. And I remember without even thinking about it, because we don't wear our shoes in Asia in the house.
Yeah.
So I ran out the room, ran downstairs, past my mom, tears streaming down my face, and I grabbed the first pair of shoes that I see, which are my like, at the time they were like busted like camo NMDs.
Okay.
And I grabbed them and I run back up to my mom's room, and I'm like holding it above my head. I'm crying. I don't even know what's going on stage at all. But I remember so vividly, there was like a moment of calm in myself. And I remember saying straight to the Lord, I said, Lord, I will go anywhere for you whenever you want me to go.
No way.
And I made that promise to the Lord that day. And I'll be very honest with you, I forgot about that. I forgot,
Okay.
I forgot about that promise for so long.
Because you're 13 at this point?
I was 13
Okay.
in February 2019. And yeah, that's kind of how I got connected with the Send and stuff like that.
Okay. So what happened? So you're crying, that moment passes, you kind of regain your composure. Do you sit there and watch much more of the conference?
I don't remember much, but I remember my
Okay.
mom coming in and like giving me a hug and just like, what did the Lord say, and all these different things. And I'm
Yeah.
like telling her through my tears.
Oh,
And
wow.
I kind of forget about it. I kind of go on with my life. I start playing sports. I start like getting
Okay.
school. I was in a really good school in Malaysia, and I forgot all about stuff like that. But I remember very vividly after that conference, I would go into my room and I'd open the Bible. Never really read the Bible before. No one really told me to. And I remember I'd Google like, what does it mean? Like the harvest is like, I didn't know what it meant. Read
Oh,
Matthew
interesting.
9, and I would preach to my paintings on my walls, and I just speak for like 2 hours straight on Matthew 9 and
No way.
what the frick is going on. And I didn't find this out till later, but my mom, she would sit at my door and listen to me like talk. She'd be able to hear me from downstairs, just like preaching to my wall, which I found really funny.
Wait, that is crazy. What would you preach for 2 hours?
I don't remember. I used to have altar calls. My like teddy bears used to get saved, and all these at 13 years old, I didn't even know.
No way.
I would just kind of say the things that Todd White said at the conference that like got me like, I would say that was my spiritual awakening. I'd say the
Yeah.
he shared a story about a man in a house, and I would share the exact same story and pretend like my teddy bears and my paintings would come up and get prayer, and I'd pray for them, and different things like that. Um,
That is crazy.
but
That is wild.
I forgot all about. I'll be honest with you. I kind of got so caught up in life that I forgot all about. I knew about my encounters. I never journaled anything, but I forgot everything. It just became like I thought it was like the normal path for a Christian to
Okay.
like have these encounters, and I was like, okay, but my mom didn't, and I never found this out till my DTS. But my mom began to pray again, like, Lord, how do you want me to steward my son's gifting? How do you want me to
No
steward his
way.
calling? Never knew any of this. I kind of just did school from grade 7 to grade 12, 13. Just went and did life. Never went on a mission trip. Never really made any steps towards my calling at all. I kind of forgot about it, and I kind of got into the flow of like an Asian life almost, like prioritizing money and power and like schooling and the conventional way, etc. Stuff like that.
Yeah. What was your thought? Like what did you think about studying, or what kind of career did you want?
It seemed like the next logical step, no matter what. All my friends were doing it. They were getting into the best universities and all these different things. Um, but behind the scenes, my mom would pray that, and she began. It started with an Instagram reel of Jonathan Helser, and he was talking about how he first picked up his guitar and started songwriting at a place called YWAM. And she's like, YWAM, what is that? Like, I've never heard that before. And after that, she would just see Hawaii and like YWAM everywhere she'd look. She'd Google the birthplace of an actor and it would be Hawaii. Or like she'd hear the word Kona and like she'd be like, what is that? Because no one knows what Kona is unless you're here.
Yeah.
And over the years, she was just like, oh, wait, Andy Bird, the guy who started the Send, like he runs this thing called Fire and Fragrance in Kona, Hawaii, which is for young people training to be evangelists and on fire for God to the nations. And she's like, that is literally every single word that Justin has gotten over the last like year, like
Yeah.
in one school. And then one morning, I remember she would ask me every morning, Justin, did you have a dream last night? And I remember one day I had a dream that I was in a Bible school. And I remember talking to my parents like, hey, what would you say if I became a pastor? Like as a joke, kind of like, would you be okay with me being a pastor? But that was just added confirmation for her that like Fire and Fragrance is where I'm meant to go.
Wow.
But she never told me any of this. Uh,
Okay.
I didn't even know who Andy Bird was. I didn't see.
Yeah.
Um, but when I was 17, I had this position in a really good university in the UK. Um, but I told my parents one day, hey, I want to take a gap year. I want to like travel around the world. I don't even know, looking back, I don't really know why I even wanted to do that. All my
Wow.
friends were going to university, but I wanted to take a gap year. And my mom like interjected. She's like, you should do this thing. And I'm like, what are you talking about? At this point,
She'd been waiting for years.
I'm very worldly. I had gone dry in my faith. I was just very worldly, partying,
No more preaching to the paintings
no,
at
but
this point.
the funny thing is, I would preach to my friends and they'd be like, I feel something. But I had never read the Bible. I never
Interesting.
read the full Bible. Like, I never sat down and had a quiet time till my DTS ever.
Whoa. So you kind of at 13 you were preaching out of Matthew 9, but it faded away, and then you just got caught up in school and ambition and what you were going to do. But you were still kind of talking to your friends about Jesus, like you couldn't get away from that.
I would talk to them about Jesus, but I don't even know if I believed anything I was saying. I would,
Wow.
I would, I would memorize,
Okay.
I would memorize sermons from YouTube to preach back to my youth group and like my friends in church. I had no substance in my relationship at all. It was all from YouTube. Um, but then they get
Okay.
encountered. So I thought I was like, I had found the cheat code to being a Christian.
Interesting.
It was so weird. Looking back, it's so weird.
So you wanted to take a gap year. Your mom says, "Oh, I've got a plan for you. You should do this school in Kona." And what did you say?
I said, no, I don't want to. I was like, no, I don't really want to do it. But she showed me the "What is DTS" video that's
Oh
on,
yeah.
and like I started going down this rabbit hole of people who have gone and like looking at all the videos of Fire and Fragrance and stuff, and I was like, this seems quite interesting. It's 6 months. It's not even that long. It's in Hawaii. I've never been to the US before. Might as well. It's a beach
Okay.
place, and maybe maybe it'll be worth it. Um, and then I didn't want to go anymore. And I remember telling my mom, if my visa gets declined, that's God. Not believing in God at all. I really had no relationship with him.
Okay.
And I was just so resistant to the last moment. And I was like, you know what? Whatever. My mom really wants me to do this. I love my mom so much. I'll just do it. And I arrived and I arrived on the Sunday night. And then Monday night is ministry night in Kona. And I
Yeah.
remember standing there and all these people are like on the floor. And I'm like, what is going on? Because I had not experienced that in years, like maybe five
Yeah.
years at that point.
And okay, this is so wild. Um, so you're there, they're worshiping, people are getting encountered by God. And are you kind of skeptical about it now? Like, hey, I've seen this. I don't know if this is real or what I think because I experienced this and then I walked away from it. Or are you kind of hungry and kind of want to go all in?
I was so prideful because
Oh,
I was in a room that first night. I don't know why we did this, but we talked about like where we came from and our struggles. And a lot of them are like, hey, I came from broken family, my parents are divorced, all these different things. I've never really had an encounter with Jesus. And I remember sitting there thinking, wow, I'm such a super Christian. I've had these encounters with Jesus. I've laid hands on the sick and they've been healed. I've preached the gospel and people have gotten saved. I've heard basically as close to the audible voice of God as you can. I've
you
received
were that kid in the room.
I've received more prophetic words than all of you guys combined. Like, you guys should be looking to me. I'm like,
I'm sure you were everybody's favorite.
I'm like, I wish I was exaggerating. I was like thinking that the whole time. I remember thinking that first ministry night, there was a lady on her knees next to me. And then my roommate was on my right that I just met that day. And they're like crying and like raising their hands. And I'm like, I've been there before. I know exactly what he's going through. Like,
No way.
genuinely. And I I still remember so vividly. There was a moment during that night where all my hairs like stood up on it. Like someone, it felt like someone poured like ice water down my back.
Huh.
And I heard in my spirit, I heard in my spirit, you were the least out of everyone here because you have tasted my goodness and still turned away.
Oh, savage. Oh my gosh.
Oh, that really woke me up
So
because
he just dealt directly with the pride. Just
I
spoke like so clearly.
still remember it. I remember, and I was like fearful the rest of the night almost. I was like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, I
High
bet.
horse that I was sitting on my whole like my the last 5 years of my Christian walk is like he kind of just like took me off that and put me in the freaking dump.
Yeah, that's
Um,
crazy.
but after that, I really tried to like figure out who this God was for real.
Yeah. So did you feel like you kind of had your breaking moment in that Monday night where you're like, okay, I came in prideful, but now I'm going to take the humble road, or did it did it take a little bit longer?
Oh, it took a little bit longer.
Okay.
I feel like something that didn't help a little bit was I remember the third day of class. Um, I text my mom after class. Mom, there's this amazing speaker here. His name's Andy Bird. I've never heard him before. But he's like the greatest communicator I've ever heard.
Oh, no way.
And she texted me, No, Justin, you have heard him before. He is the guy that, remember when you lifted up your shoes when you were 13? He was the guy that prompted that. He's the guy that ran the send. And it was like a full circle that hit me like, wait, there is no way God just brought me full circle 5 years later.
I want to personally invite you to come to the Send Conference. We're gathering for 2.5 days to encounter Jesus, gain clarity on our purpose, and actually live our faith outwardly. Not just inspiration, but real activation. Thousands of believers are coming July 23rd to the 25th. 2026 at the Anaheim Convention Center. If you've been wanting to anchor your year in Jesus and step into what God is calling you to, or if you're living missionally and you're ready to go to the next level, this is for you. Join Francis Chan, Christine Kane, Andy Bird, Carrie Job, Circle Rider Music, and Jesus Image Worship. Everybody's going to be there, and I'd love to see you there too. Registration link is going to be in the show notes. Check it out. Oh my gosh.
I go up to him during the break in class and I tell him, I'm from Malaysia. I watched the Send online in 2019, and he's like freaking out. And he's like, you should go on stage and like after the break and like tell everybody like a little bit of your testimony. And after that moment, I was known as like the shoes guy. Like people would come up to me and ask me about the shoes, and I'm like, that definitely didn't help because I had no relationship with God still.
Yeah.
But DTS changed my life. Honestly, changed my life.
Yeah, what were some of the major moments? You know, I mean, clearly like God is working and putting your heart into the right place, but are there certain moments in that 6 months where you kind of say, wow, I remember that's when my walls came down, or that's when God gave me passion for the nations, or you know, I saw myself walking out all these prophetic words that I had gotten when I was 13.
Yeah, the first one was, I remember it was the second week of ministry night. Second week ministry night of DTS. And I feel a tap on my shoulder, and it's a staff called Caillou. And he comes up to me and he says, hey, I don't know your name, but I felt like the Lord just showed me a picture of you. He wants to meet you in the secret place. I saw a picture of you on your knees in a dark room, alone, praying and worshiping with a spotlight from heaven. And
Oh,
I said,
wow.
wow, what is the secret place? Is that a room on campus I have to find? I literally said to him, is that a room on campus I have to find? Because no one had ever told, no, it's funny looking back, but no
Yeah.
one had ever told me what a personal life with Jesus was, what it
No
meant.
way.
to-
Wow.
No one ever told me. My mom did her best. My mom really tried to, but she was on her own way of finding the Holy Spirit and like developing that relationship. So I felt like she was like, Lord, like you have to take my son. You have to, I can't disciple him. I don't know how. Um, and my dad's working so hard with work that he just didn't really have time to. So I remember asking him, is that a room on campus I have to find? And and the next day I just go into the prayer room and I remember I sit and I say, Lord, I want to meet you in the secret place that everyone's talking about. I don't know what it is, but I just want to meet you there.
Yeah.
And I open up to Matthew 18. That's where I was reading because someone told me to read the Bible for the first time.
Okay.
And usually I just skim through the chapters, but I remember so vividly. I read the whole of Matthew 18 and I looked at my phone and it had been an hour and a half. And I remember the biggest smile came on my face. I couldn't stop smiling because I said, I just found the secret place. That is the secret
Oh,
place. Like me having revelation in every single line that I'm reading. That's the secret place. I was so happy. That was probably the start of my personal relationship with God. I remember the first time I cried over my nation. I had
oh, wow. Okay. Over Malaysia?
over Malaysia.
Yeah.
We would have these Tuesday night um Asia prayer sets for the teams that are going to different nations in Asia. And we went to I went to the Philippines one, and one of the staff, his name's Nate Diaz, who led to the Philippines in my DTS. I remember seeing him at the front of the prayer room travailing over his nation. like travailing. I've never heard or never seen someone cry so patriotically almost for their nation.
Whoa.
And I remember going up to him after the set, like, how'd you do that? I've never cried over Malaysia. I've never even prayed over Malaysia. Like, how I want to get to that place. And I
Yeah.
remember he prays over me. And that night I go to the flags. We have the Plaza of the Nations, and I go to the Malaysian flag. And I remember putting my hand on the pole and saying, Lord, I want to burn for Malaysia like how Nate burns for the Philippines. And in that moment, I remember so vividly crying for the first time, praying for my nation.
Oh, no
Just
way.
bawling my eyes out, Lord, send Malaysian missionaries. Lord, would you reignite the lukewarm church in Malaysia? Just praying all these different prayers. Didn't
Oh
even
my
really know what I
gosh.
was praying for.
Yeah.
I would just pray and pray. I was probably there for like 30 minutes, just praying over my nation. And that was the first time where my heart was like, okay, wait, I had kind of neglected my Malaysian heritage my whole life. I think
Okay.
if I can go into a bit of my a bit of backstory, like
Sure. Yeah.
growing up, I went to the British School of Malaysia. That's why I don't sound super Asian.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yeah.
of that, I never fit in anywhere I felt. I felt like with the Malaysian Chinese, which I am, I don't fit in because I don't speak the language fluently and I don't sound like them. And then in
Mm-hmm.
school, all my mates were like European, and I felt like I never fit in with them either. So
Right.
I decided, I probably made the decision in grade 4, grade 5, I'm gonna just neglect my Malaysian side and I'm just gonna feed into this like British culturally kid and
Yeah.
be like
Wow.
them. So for the first time, I felt like the Lord really said, "Hey Justin, no, I didn't make a mistake. You are Malaysian for a reason. You are
That's
also
powerful.
British because if that's the culture that you grew up in, you can't neglect either side." And he broke my heart for Malaysia that day, and it's still broken to this day. I can happily say.
That is so powerful. So your life is just getting absolutely transformed
No,
week by week.
100%.
Yeah, what was it like to actually kind of step in to these words that you'd gotten when you were 13 and actually go to the nations with the gospel? What was that experience like?
I remember I was in California the first half of my outreach, just meeting with a lot of Asian Americans, and we had
Hmm.
our first house gathering in I think it was in Orange County,
Oh,
and
cool.
maybe like 30, 40 like Asian American like teenagers like came to this house, like the circuit rider house that that we were hosting it at. And I remember my leader Esther like opens the floor up to the students and being like, "Hey, do you guys feel like the Lord's wanting to say anything?" And I remember in that moment, the Lord brought me back to that moment at the flags actually, where the Lord kind of said, "Hey Justin, wait, you can't neglect any side of your heritage.
Mm,
You
yeah.
have inheritance in Malaysia and you have inheritance in the UK." And I felt in that moment, like in my spirit, just I felt a wrestle in the room with all these Asian Americans. There were Vietnamese Americans, Korean, Chinese Americans. I kind of almost related to them, their struggle, growing up in maybe a predominantly white area
Yeah.
of America, but also being Korean and being Vietnamese and all these different things, looking and sounding different, maybe eating different things, which I really related to. And I remember getting in front and saying, "Hey, God doesn't make any mistakes in your life. God, you have inheritance in Korea, you have inheritance in Vietnam, you have inheritance in China. You can't neglect all of that, no matter how hard it might be. Your
Yeah.
desire to fit in." I just started like just, and I remember so vividly just feeling the pride of God, feeling the pride of God over me stepping out. I remember just feeling like he was smiling at me. It was like the sun was like lit on me. I remember it was like the sun like it was lit on me. That I just felt like all his favor and all his love and affection was like, this is what I asked people to prophesy over you so many years before.
Wow.
And he kept bringing me back. back to when I was 13, and he would bring me back to that day where this old lady came up to me and said, "Hey, you are meant to be on fire. The Lord will light you on fire, and it will be contagious, and it will spread throughout the nations." I
Yeah.
still remember the lady's face, and the Lord brought me back to that moment so many times, because obviously one of the mottos of Fire and Fragrance is "We're the burning ones." And I just thought that was so fitting, and the Lord reminded me of that throughout outreach, and even to this day,
Wow.
really.
Yeah. So did you feel like you got to tap into that 13-year-old that was preaching to your teddy bears? Like did some of that come back?
More in private, I feel like I wasn't ready for the public.
Yeah. Okay.
I wrestled with that a lot, because I didn't get to preach much at all in my outreach, and I remember wrestling with the Lord. Like, even I feel like I've got a worship gifting. My parents are worship leaders, and I lead worship here. I didn't get to worship lead that much either on outreach. I was just super out of the spotlight, and knowing what I know now, it was so God,
Yeah.
because although I had that calling, my character was nowhere near my ability. There was so much pride still in my heart. The Lord had to humble me
Yeah.
many times, and I feel like if I was thrusted onto a preaching stage, it would have crushed me,
Yeah.
absolutely crushed me. So it was the mercy
That
of God
make
for sure.
that makes sense. Uh and so what do you feel like God deposited you during that season? Like did you feel like you got vision for being in missions for nations? Like what do you feel like at the end of that 6 month school, how had you changed and what were you carrying in your heart?
I think the biggest thing that first changed was I could confidently say I had a personal relationship with God.
Yeah.
The revelation that that I would talk to my friends back home about was my revelation. It was not secondhand food from famous speakers like Bill Johnson, who I'd memorized
Right.
from. I could confidently say that I knew who Jesus was. He was no longer the God of Bill Johnson or Todd White. He was not the God of my parents. He was like my God. And I think that
Wow.
was the biggest breakthrough that I got from my DTS. He This is the best way I could put it. He like broke my view of he like what's the word? He like dismantled my view of him completely and put it back in the way that it was meant to be, because my view on him was so skewed and so wrong. And he just reintroduced the basics, like the foundation, love, faithfulness, mercy, kindness, grace, all that. I
Yeah.
felt personally for the first time. I'd never felt that personally before. It was all through a sermon or through a worship night. But I could confidently say after my DTS that I knew who Jesus was, and he knew me.
Yeah. Wow. And then I mean obviously you're back now on staff.
Yeah.
So do you feel like God took you up on that promise that you said like God I'll go anywhere, you know, when you want to send me, I will go. Kind of, that shoe moment. Do you feel like God has he taken you up on that promise yet? Are you still in
Oh,
like a training and seeking him for what your future is? Like, where are you at in the journey?
he has taken me up on that promise. I remember this last year was my first year leading, and we were in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of a country called Georgia, which is right below
Okay.
Nashville. In the middle of nowhere, dirt road. It looked like it was really rough. And I remember my whole team is sick. I'm sick. I'm dying in bed. And I remember being like, Lord, I want to quit. Like, I want to quit. Like, this is not what I signed up for. And I remember so vividly, I was in the kitchen because it was the only heated part of my house. And it's like cold. So I'm like crammed up against the heater. And the Lord reminded me of that day. He reminded me of two things. He reminded me of that day where I promised I'd go anywhere for him whenever he asked me. And it reminded me of the song of Just Put Me Anywhere. Just put your
Oh, wow.
glory in me. I'll go anywhere. Just let me see your beauty. And he challenged me that day to sign up again. So yes, he has taken me up on that. Even being here this year, coming back to do a second year, I was very hesitant is not the right word, but I feel like my flesh wants to follow the current of where everyone else is going back home,
Mhm.
or the uni. My friends graduate this year and next year from university with degrees. They're earning money. I'm here in Hawaii, just like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And my flesh really does almost want to like throw it all away sometimes.
Yeah.
But the Lord does remind me of that promise that I made to him. And he's like, I'm taking you up on that promise right now. Are you gonna say
Wow.
yes? Are you gonna be obedient? And I'm here out of obedience, and it has been the best decision I've ever made. Genuinely.
Quick word to pastors and church leaders. If your heart is to see people activated in their missional calling, we would love for you to be part of our next Activated Church gathering. This is a space for pastors who want to learn from other pastors and leaders how they are effectively activating their people to mission. We know that this will be a time that'll strengthen you and inspire you. And if that resonates, fill out the interest form below. We would love to connect and explore what partnership could look like. Yeah, tell me why has it been worth it to say yes and obey, even though um, at times it's felt like a costly thing to do?
You see a different side of God in the nations. You see him even here. It's a different, it's a different, it's the same God, but it's a different side. I feel
Yeah.
like when I was in Georgia, the country, not the state, I have to just clarify that. Um, I saw a God. I saw almost, I don't know if desperation is the right word, but I saw a God that was so desperate for his people to just know him.
Wow.
Like, I saw a God who would literally do anything, who would send a random team from Kona, Hawaii, 40 hours of travel to a small nation that honestly, it was the second Christian nation in the world, like behind Armenia, and yet they are so far from that, and that the Lord would so intentionally send our team of 9 people, 11 people to this nation was like it just showed how far the Lord's willing to go for his people.
Yeah.
I feel like even the leadership skills that I've learned translate into every aspect of life. Like whether from here I go on to lead my own team, like long term to the nations, or I go back to school to influence the spheres, these leadership qualities and this foundation that I feel like I've built with God, like it just grows and grows and grows while being here and while leading a team. And there's
Yeah.
no like nothing's wasted with God, and I know He's gonna use it. So
Yeah. Yeah. I like that perspective because I mean, we absolutely believe that no matter where you're called, whether it's a classroom to be a teacher or in a hospital as a doctor or in government, there is a missional calling for every person. But it just so happens that, right now, what God has called you to is nations and to go to these like unreached people groups, places that don't have someone to share about Jesus. But that's not the only place where you can serve God. The mission, like
100%.
a foreign missionary, is not the only place where someone has to give their full obedience and surrender to God. So I like that perspective.
Yeah, if we all move to the field, who's gonna influence Hollywood? Who's gonna influence businesses? You know,
Yeah, come
we need
on.
missionaries. We need missionaries there too. And I feel like
Yeah,
being I personally for me, I feel called back to the spheres. I feel called to, business, and I feel called to not necessarily maybe move long term like in the next like couple years. Maybe in the future for sure my hands are so open. But I feel like the Lord's calling me back into formal education to get my degree and to and to start businesses to fund missionaries.
Huh.
Um, I feel like there's no less holy destination in the sense of where I feel like it's just as holy to move to the field as it is to go back to school. It's all about
Yeah, it's a matter of just simple obedience.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but I also really like what you said about there are certain things that you experience about Jesus and a depth of intimacy and understanding his heart that you don't get unless you go and be among the poor and the lost and the broken. Um, you just see you see a different side of how God shows up and he speaks to you and he's there with you and you get to literally experience his heart, his passion, his power.
Mm.
And yeah, I mean, at least I had that same experience where I was 27, staffing my first YWAM school, and literally thinking like, what am I doing with my life? Like, my friends are buying houses, having kids, and I'm sleeping on the floor in South Africa with a bunch of 20-year-olds, like raising my own finances, trying to make it work, and just thinking like, God, am I totally crazy?
Yeah.
But I look back and see how masterfully he wrote this storyline for me, because I had a version of my life of how I wanted it to go and all that kind of stuff. But I look back and think, oh my gosh, if I would have tried to orchestrate that plan, knowing the immaturities and weaknesses that I had, it would have just gone bad so fast. And I would have been missing so many things about my own relationship and understanding about him, my own lack of um, leadership development. And so, I look at this road that God put me on because I, obeyed and said yes and just think, man, he like, I wouldn't want it any other way. He was so purposeful and it was so genius how he developed my skills and my character and put me in a community um, that really cared about me and transformed me. So
He never if he calls you somewhere, he'll never just leave you out to dry. I
yeah,
feel I feel like that's been what's got me through that time in Georgia. It was really tough. Um, not just physically, but just logistically. A lot of the plans that we made kind of like fell through. And I remember I was in that first town. I haven't told this to many people, so I don't know why I'm saying it. But like I remember every morning, the only place that I could be alone, because it was such a small house full of 11 people, was like outside on the balcony. It was like 20 degrees. And I remember sitting outside every morning, just crying out to God, Lord, I have no idea how I'm gonna lead this team. I
wow,
I don't we have barely any ministry. We are like struggling. Like we're all sick. I don't know how to do this. And every morning I would see the same flock of birds fly over at the sunrise, bang on 7 a.m. Every morning
interesting.
at 7 a.m. I'd see the same flock in like a V shape just
Yeah,
go across. And every morning I was reminded of the verse like, look at the birds of the air. They don't sow nor reap, yet your heavenly Father takes care of them. Are you
yep.
not more precious than birds? And that was just God's reminder to me every day for those 3 weeks we were in that town. That He's got me.
Huh,
And I'm
that's
here. I'm
beautiful.
alive. We
You made it.
so we're
That's
we're
good.
okay. We're okay.
What does your mom think now of how everything is unfolded?
She I called her yesterday actually. Um, just to check up on her and just ask her a few questions. And she she showed me a journal entry she wrote in 2022. Um, she basically just entrusting me to the Lord and saying, Lord, like she let's just say like, Lord, like I'm not happy with where Justin's like spiritual maturity is. Realistically, with the encounters he's had, he should be a lot further along, like in the
Oh,
sense of like he
interesting.
should be more mature, but he's not. It feels like he's gone backwards. But I trust you with his discipleship and I trust you with his journey. And
Wow.
when I came back to staff, she was so proud of me. Both my parents are so proud of me. And she's almost relieved because I'm like her first fruit. I'm her eldest son. She's like,
Yeah.
praise God, at least he turned out okay. So she's
That's
praised
awesome. Do you feel like you have any advice or message for, yeah, because I'm sure a lot of people, I know a lot of people go to the send and God speaks to them about the nations, but they don't necessarily know what that first step is, or it doesn't unfold like they maybe expected,
God.
or it's taking a little bit longer than they thought it should be. What what kind of message would you have for somebody that's kind of wrestling, like, gosh, should I actually go? Like, I don't know. I told God yes, but now it feels scary and I don't know what I'm in for.
I would recommend, like, my advice would be to remember that initial feeling when you raise up those shoes, when you say yes to God. Remember how you felt. Remember how real it felt. Because the biggest wrestle in my life was the devil saying, are you sure those prophetic words were even accurate? Like, they were just a bunch of old Asian ladies. Like, how could that be God? Those
Wow.
encounters where I'm weeping, is that just emotionalism? Are you just being emotional because you're a young kid and you don't know? And staying rooted in, hey, wait, it was real back then. It doesn't become less real because time has gone on. And come and do a DTS. I really do feel like DTS equips you so much. And it just prepares you with the skills needed, and it gives you the heart to even do it. I feel like you can't minister to people if you don't grab God's heart for them. And I feel like, at least for me, in my experience and how I've talked to so many people about it, they really grab God's heart for the nations when they come do a DTS, because it's all about God and it's all about the nations. So
Hmm.
that would just remember that initial yes, how that felt, how real God was in that moment, and just cling on to that.
Justin, that story is unbelievable, and it's really fun to hear. I mean, it's fun because you don't know the ending. You don't know. None of us know where the yes that we give God is going to take us.
Mhm.
Whether it's to university or to the nations, and it's fun to hear people wrestling with that journey. And saying, I'm just taking it one step at a time. I'm trying to follow God's voice, but I am saying yes, because I know that takes a lot of courage. It takes faith, and yeah, especially when it's kind of upside down and backwards from what the world tells you is the right way to live. It's fun to get to hear that story and hear that it's possible and that it's full of adventure. And I mean, I just think about the things that you really have discovered and how it's changed your life. It's provoking.
100%. No, I'm so grateful. He's so faithful. Like, I can't believe that he's still fulfilling, but I can't believe that he brought me this far from the time I was 13 years old and how far I walked away from him. And yet he was still faithful to be faithful to his word and to fulfill the
Yeah.
words he spoke over me. That just blows my mind, because if I was God, I would have given up on this guy. Praise God, I'm not God. But I would have been like, man, I gave him almost everything that he could need. And yet he still walked away from me. Like, he's a lost cause, but praise God, we don't
Wow.
serve a God like that. He stuck by me.
That's powerful. That's true. Well, Justin, thanks so much for taking the time to share your story. That was
No
that was
worries.
really fun.
No worries. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate
Yeah.
it.